Hi friends, I'm Laurel from Alabaster Purl. This is my very first knitted garment, and if you want to hear everything that I learned through the process, stick around. So this is the Juniper Tee by Morthunder. If you do not follow her, you definitely should. She is straight up girl boss, a true entrepreneur. I cannot say that word very easily. Writes killer patterns, and she's just hilarious. I love her. She's one of my favorite people. So she writes amazing patterns and sells them on Etsy. And this past summer, she actually released 50 patterns over 50 days, which blows my mind because I have written a grand total of, I think, 4 patterns. And they're definitely not as complicated as her. So the girl knows what she's doing. And I've test knitted for her a couple of times, and I was super excited to test knit this one because it was my very first garment, whereas I've knitted a bunch of hats, scarves, mittens in the past, but this is the first piece of clothing that I've made. So I was really excited to test knit for her. I know that her patterns are written really well, so I knew kind of what to expect. Like, I'm familiar with her style of writing. And I could tell by the photos that it was just garter stitch, which is just knit stitches front and back, and then seaming up the sides. So I knew that it would be pretty mindless while I was knitting it, but then when I would get to the neckline, I would be learning some things, and then of course like shaping sleeves, like this was gonna be new for me. I was excited to learn just a couple new things, but I knew that it was something that was attainable for me, and I am all about setting up realistic expectations and achievable goals. I suggest you do the same for yourself. I'm gonna do my best to show you a full shot of this. I'm gonna move the chair, stand here. Hopefully you can see the whole thing. All right, so you can't see the whole thing, but I'll move for the photo. So I'm really happy with the colors, but it did turn out pretty big. I think originally it was supposed to be big, like it's a boxy sweater. It's supposed to be loose, but I made a large. I definitely should have just gone with the medium because it's basically a moo-moo on me. Overall, I think it's super fun. I love the colors that I went with. And I'm super happy with this seam. Oh, I just think that looks so good. And here's the back. This pattern was perfect for our first garment. There was no crazy increases, there's no lace work, there's nothing that really stretches me besides it being just a garment. It was all basic stuff that I knew. So there was no crazy yoke, there was no crazy darts, and I wasn't stuck on Sleeve Island, which was really nice. It's just got these cute little cap sleeves, and they just meet right down there. I'm really happy with it. It's super comfortable. Material is incredibly squishy. Oh, I love it. It turned out a little too big. I like big sweaters, but it's a little too big, but that's okay. I can either fix it later or give it to my mom because she says she really likes it, and then make myself another one. Either way, it's a win. It's really fun. I might even wear it around and see what people say. Let me know if you think it's way too big or if it looks cute. Things are gonna get crazy in a couple weeks, so I'm not gonna have time to fix it this spring, unfortunately, but maybe this upcoming fall or winter, we'll see. But I at least have the pattern and I know how to fix it if it comes to that. I've been on both sides of test knitting, where I've been a test knitter and where I've had test knitters. It's so much better when you have test knitters who actually provide feedback. They test knit it, they take photos, they promote it, that's great. But I've had some test knitters just be like, it's great. And then I look back and notice things that are mistakes, and they clearly didn't pay attention to it. So I take test knitting very seriously. Just ask anyone that I've test knitted for. I send back gobs of notes to the point where it's annoying. But if I'm test knitting for someone for a first time, I usually give them fair warning, like, hey, just so you know, I give back really solid notes. Don't take it personally. Don't feel defeated. I will give you both praise and constructive criticism, but I'm just warning you, like, I do this for everybody, so don't take it to heart. Don't think that I don't like the pattern, because I do. This last weekend, I had a tiny market at a wine cellar over in Lisle, Washington. It was pretty mellow at first. As people trickled in, I was just sitting on the couch knitting. I had my booth set up off to the side because I feel like sometimes that can actually draw people in more as if you're not there just staring them down. That can be a little bit intimidating as a shopper if you see the person right there, like, oh, don't make eye contact with them. I decided to just sit there and knit, and anytime people see me knitting in public like that, they almost always ask me, how long does it take for you to knit an item? Well, I can do that for this sweater because guess what? I timed it. This was twofold. I wanted to give Morgan really good information back with my notes. I actually timed a few rows and did an average of it. And then I did the math where I could figure out each section and then just tallied it up at the end. The second reason I did this was I actually wanted to see how much of a time difference there was between knitting English and knitting continental, because I think that knitting continental is so much faster. So this actually timed it, this actually tested it, and I thought, what a great opportunity. So I took a couple videos, pieced them together, and here's what we got.
In the top right corner, I'm knitting continental style, and the lower video, I'm knitting English. Like most people, I originally learned how to knit English. Last year, I forced myself to learn continental because it looked so much faster. It took some practice, but eventually it clicked. Side note, does anyone else's hands get stage fright when that camera turns on? I swear my hands know how to knit. One thing I noticed during this test is how much tighter my English stitches were, so it took more work and time to move my stitches around the needles. It takes hardly any work to shift them around with the continental stitches. Another factor is how much time it eats up to rewrap the yarn around my finger when I'm knitting English style. Continental is a more consistent strand and it doesn't take up any extra time. Overall, there's less movement for continental knit. Instead of 4 or 5 movements for each stitch like it is for English, continental is practically one fluid motion. I've got to admit, even though I know the results of this video, my heart was racing while I watched the footage side by side. It is such a close race. Whew! Continental wins. But by how much? Come on! You can do it! And done. So it's 30 seconds difference between the two styles per row. Now this may not seem like it shaved off much time, but I think you'll be really surprised how much of a difference it makes in the long run.
So I actually did math, you guys. I'm terrible at math. Why did I pick a craft that was so math-based? I actually wanted to see how much faster it was if I knitted this whole sweater continental versus English. I'm gonna round up just to make the math a lot easier because like I said, I'm not very good at math. Rounding up, one row from this end to this end took about 2.5 minutes. It took 425 minutes to knit from here to here. On the English style, it took roughly 3 minutes for one row. Same thing, knitted from here to the bottom for just the body. With English, it took a total of 510 minutes. And that's just for one panel. There's 2 panels for the sweater. So multiply each of those numbers by 2. Continental total time for just the body for both panels is 850 minutes. English for both panels is 1,020 minutes. That's 170 minutes difference. That's a long time, you guys. That is 2.83 hours or 2 hours and 50 minutes. And let's round up, so let's just say 3 hours. It's 3 hours faster to knit this sweater continental. I think that's pretty cool. So there you have it. I did math for you, proving that continental knitting is faster, at least for me anyways. I thought that was pretty cool, even though I don't like math. It's literally cold, hard facts. After knitting the front and the back panel, I had to sew the ends together by seaming them together, and I wanted to make sure that the stripes lined up, otherwise it could look super messy. And this was a part that was new to me. I haven't seamed together garter stitch pieces. I've done a couple other things, but never straight garter stitch, so I had to look up stuff on YouTube how to do this. And my favorite tutorial was by Very Pink Knits, and I thought I'd film that too because it's pretty and it's fun and everyone loves time lapses. So let's watch.
When learning to seam up garter stitch, it's really easy to get lost and not be able to tell where your last stitch went. Especially when you're seaming with the same color of yarn, it can just disappear into that last stitch. So my solution was to not pull the yarn completely through the last stitch. This way I could see where my next stitch was supposed to start. Of course, Kitty wanted to be involved. And here, I'm simply changing my yarn color. Honestly, I could have used that blue strand up the entire length of the sweater, and you wouldn't have been able to see it. It completely disappears on the inside of the sweater. And then it's also less ends to weave in, which is always nice. Oh, cats. Thankfully, the sweater is just for me, don't worry. Now here I was actually considering switching to the white yarn, but I wanted to see if that pink yarn was going to be visible with such a stark contrast. And thankfully, it completely disappears. Kitty approves. Oh, that seam just looks so beautiful.
If you want to make a sweater yourself, you can. Morgan's gonna have this pattern released, I think, in a couple of weeks, like mid-March. So keep an eye out for that. Definitely subscribe to her YouTube, find her on Instagram, she's on Etsy. So follow her at least on one of those platforms. Thanks for sticking with me as I ramble on about this sweater. I'm super excited about it if you can't tell. If you're a knitter and you've made a sweater, please drop a comment below and let me know your favorite pattern that you've worked with. I love going off of recommendations first. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hit that like button if you did. If you're new to my channel, hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned next week for a beanie upgrade from a baby size to a toddler size. I'll show you exactly how I do that, as well as attach leather tags, weave in ends, and a few other things. Have a great day and happy knitting! Oh, are you gonna be here for my intro? Well, come here. Can you say hi to the camera? Yeah. Show them your RBF. Faster. Not sponsored by Aquafina. Get the squeaks out. I'm not expecting to look like a model. I would just like to have my eyes open in the photo. Nailed it.